Alright, the answer to the $1,000,000 question of what happened to the unit that I put on the forum, where I got to the call and the fan motor was running at a very low RPM and the compressor was offline. Now, a lot of the guys started getting on the right track. You know, we had guesses of shorted compressor, guesses that it had something to do with the single pole contactor, and the single pole contactor does play a part in it. And what had happened is I turned the unit off, and I was checking over the fan motor, see how it looked. The fan motor looked fine. It turned out the fan motor worked fine because when I depressed the contactor, it would take off and run normally. So it would go all the way up to the proper RPM. So I said, all right, well, let me check the compressor. And what I did was I checked the compressor with a mega ohm meter, and it was fine. No grounds, no shorts to ground. But when I checked from winding to winding in the compressor, it was open on all 3 windings. So everything inside the compressor was separated. Now, I don't know what happened inside this compressor, but something very bad happened inside this compressor. It was cool to the touch. It wouldn't have been thermal overloaded because that's not on all 3 windings. This is just a regular Copeland compressor, CR24, blah, 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 single phase compressor. So with that compressor open all the time and having a single pole contactor, that voltage finds its way all the way back to the other side of the contactor, on the top side of the contactor, on the load side, because it has a pathway in from, let's say, L1 into the unit and all the way back on the top to T2. So with the compressor out of the loop, because the compressor has low resistance on the windings, you know, it's just a few ohms. So with that resistance on the windings being very low, nothing really happens in the unit. But the fan motor has higher resistance on the windings. So what you happen is you get voltage in between the 2 sides. So all of a sudden, instead of having 0 volts around and just the power running through on that one leg, you had 21 volts on the fan motor. So the fan motor would start to run. It would run at a very slow RPM all the time because it was getting voltage from L1 to L2 because the ohms were so high, the resistance was so high, there was a load there. So it's a very interesting call. The compressor shot, the fan motor's I'm sure fine, because when you press the contactor in, it was running fine. The bad part is it's been running at a low RPM, so not really good for it to run at the very low RPM, because if it stays that way for a long time, there's issues with lubricating the bearings. But it didn't show any signs of that, of having an issue, so theoretically it would be fine. So at the very minimum, a compressor replacement. They didn't have money to do the whole system, and there's not really any dry charge units around here anymore, because that unit itself was a dry charge unit from, I think, 6 years ago. I'm not sure. So that's the answer to the question, what happened on the service call. Again, you can find this information in the forum on the website. I'll put the link. Actually, you're watching this on the website probably, because I'm going to link it back to the channel. So check out the forums, check out the chat there in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm building a HVAC library. On the top right tab, you'll see HVAC library, and I've been adding some international comfort product stuff, but as I go through each day, I'll add a few more. It's going to take a while to build it up. If you want anything in that library that you think will be useful to you sooner rather than later, just let me know in the comments, either on YouTube or on the blog itself here on the website. Thanks, guys. I hope you have a great Labor Day. I had a good time. I did the one call this morning that I'm talking about, but now I'm standing outside with my chickens, and we're relaxing. As you can see, there we are relaxing down there, having a good time. I worked a little bit on the chicken coop today, and we had a little bonfire in the yard while we played soccer. So I hope everybody had a good time. I know I did. And I'll see you on the next video and the next vlog.